When it comes to British indie bands this century, some have survived for many years and continue to find success to this date. Arctic Monkeys, The Wombats and Foals never really went away and can still sit at the top end of a festival billing. However, plenty of popular indie bands of the time soon fell by the wayside, so today we're looking at notable British indie bands that only ever released one album, or in some instances didn't even get to that point. First up, we have Cajun Dance Party. While studying for A-levels, they were signed to XL Recordings, who put out their album The Colourful Life in April 2008, which included Amelay's Colourful Life and The Next Untouchable. In the summer that followed, they appeared at Reading and Leeds Festival on the Enemy Radio 1 stage and also at Tea in the Park. But by 2009, it was all over. Frontman Daniel Blumberg and bassist Max Bloom left to form the band Yuck, which saw them swap twee jangly indie for a lo-fi noise rock influenced sound. Later in 2022, Daniel Blumberg won an Ivor Novello Award for Best Original Film Score for The World to Come. Up next, White Rose Movement. The London band were on the rise after supporting the Strokes at Hammersmith Apollo and then the Rakes on their UK tour. Their 2006 album, Kick, was widely acclaimed, with particular praise given for Love's a Number from Block Party's Kelly Okereke, who described it as the song he wished he'd written. Then, alongside major European festivals, they also appeared at Coachella in 2006. Despite continuing to play live shows over the next few years and finishing a second album, they faced difficulties with releasing it and instead announced their split in 2010. The members went their separate ways into a variety of musical projects, while keyboardist Poppy Corby-Chuesh entered the world of acting, including a recurring role as Vinda Rosier in the Fantastic Beasts films. Larrikin Love brought a unique blend of genres to the UK's indie revival. Combining indie folk with bluegrass, punk and reggae, the band's only album, The Freedom Spark, received plenty of attention from the likes of Enemy upon its release in 2006, who listed Happy as Annie as their 50th best song of that year. The album also featured plenty of guest stars, including Jamie T and Patrick Wolf. But less than a year after the album's release, the band had announced that they had split up. While the band never reformed, lead guitarist Mick O'Larkin was later seen working with Courtney Love for the last reformation of her band, Hull. Next is Mumm-Ra, who had one of the most memorable film and TV indie soundtrack songs of the era. She's got you high and you don't even know yet. After a few self-released EPs, their album These Things Move in Threes came out in 2007, and soon they were supporting the likes of The Killers, The Kooks and Kaiser Chiefs. But again, in less than a year, they announced that their journey as a band had ended. After their 2008 breakup, She's Got You High was notably used in the end credits of 500 Days of Summer. And it was also used in Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging and The In-Betweeners. Yes, peak 2000s British culture. Mumm-Ra did make a couple of returns. They followed a comeback show in 2013 with an EP of songs originally intended for a second album, and later put out new songs in 2020 and in 2024. Alongside this, frontman James New has since co-written songs across the pop industry, including for Saint Raymond. Another band that featured plenty on our TVs was Morning Runner. Yes, that is the theme music from The In-Betweeners, but we'll come to that. Morning Runner arrived on the scene in 2004 with their EP The Great Escape, and soon were signed by Parlophone. After supporting Coldplay and Athlete during 2005, the band finally released their album Wilderness is Paradise Now in March 2006. The band were growing in popularity, with Gone Up in Flames and Burning Benches charting in the top 40 in the UK. Furthermore, Chris Martin described Be All You Want Me to Be as the track that inspired their album X and Y, stating that when he heard it, he thought it was better than all of their songs, making them write a whole bunch of new tunes. The band then set out to work on new material for a second album, but a year later in October 2007, they announced that they had split up. This was due to pressure from Parlophone over a deemed lack of success of their debut album, and the need for them to follow up with an even more commercially viable second album. Then, like Mumm-Ra, they had already broken up when their songs began to be licensed for soundtracks. As previously mentioned, Gone Up in Flames was used as the theme tune for The Inbetweeners, which of course would go on to become one of the most successful and culturally definitive sitcoms of its time. Alongside this, the song was also included in the FIFA 2007 soundtrack. Meanwhile, Burning Benches featured as part of Adidas's Impossible Is Nothing advertising campaign. Frontman Matthew Greener and drummer Ali Clues continued with a variety of musical projects, before the band briefly reunited in February 2014 for a hometown show at Reading's Oakford Social Club. Matthew Greener now works as a plumber and gas engineer, while Ali Clue works with the non-profit Beyond Fossil Fuels. Test Icicles are up next. Combining dance punk, post-hardcore and thrash with indie, Test Icicles were one of the most unique sounding bands of the 2000s. Their 2005 album, for screening purposes, was met with plenty of acclaim, including an 8.1 rating from Pitchfork and listing at 50th on NME's Best Albums of the Year. They even had a couple of top 40 charting songs in the UK with Circle Square Triangle and What's Your Damage. However, less than 6 months later, the band had split, citing exhaustion from touring. After some final UK shows, they released a farewell EP, Dig Your Own Grave, which included remixes and unreleased tracks. Dev Hynes, or Dev Metal as he was in Test Icicles, went on to achieve success, first with his indie folk project Lightspeed Champion, and then as the R&B and soul influenced Blood Orange. As Blood Orange, his album Cupid Deluxe was ranked the 35th best album of the 2010s by Pitchfork, and he's gone on to write and produce for artists such as Solange, Blondie and Sky Ferreira. On top of this, he's worked with legendary composer Philip Glass, and also composed for multiple film soundtracks. Rory Atwell was also successful as a producer, particularly with the debut album for Parma Violets. Frontman Sam Merrin continued a career in music too, up until he tragically took his own life in 2018 at the age of 31. Dev Hynes paid tribute by saying, "Every time I was with you, we were 17 again. You were such a gift to this world. The floor is gone and I don't know where to stand." Some bands at this time didn't even make it as far as putting out an album, such as Jolene and the Jing Jang Jong. After forming in late 2006, the band quickly gained hype in the indie scene following support slots for Baby Shambles and Kaiser Chiefs, and were then named 7th in the BBC's Sound of 2008. It was a pretty stacked year, as you can see. Shortly after, they were supporting the Cribs alongside Does It Offend You Yet and the Ting Tings on the 2008 NME Awards tour. During this time, Jolene himself briefly dated the late Peaches Geldof, resulting in Whatever This Is. After various international festival appearances that summer, their debut album was then due to come out. Despite a pre-release review from NME of 8 out of 10, the album was scrapped 13 days before its release due to not representing their current sound. But we never actually got to hear this sound, as the band later split without any further releases, meaning their official discography just consists of the singles Lucio Starts Fires, Lonely Boy and Where Do You Go. Not including Jolene himself, 3 other members formed the band Toy, while drummer George Craig joined his brother James in One Night Only. And yes, that is Emma Watson. Jolene was better known as Jo Van Moyland in the world of acting. Most notably, he'd appeared in The Tudors, Star Wars The Last Jedi, and Peep Show.
This is outrageous!
Another short-lived band was Sheffield-based Harrisons. They emerged out of the city at the same time as the Long Blondes, Melbourne, and of course Arctic Monkeys, which is a great excuse to show this picture of Alex Turner at an early Harrisons show. Harrison signed with Melodic Records, and their early singles were gaining attention from the likes of Zane Lowe and Steve Lamacq. However, the band struggled to cope with the excesses and demands of juggling both recording and touring. The record label had stopped funding them due to overspending during this period, and the band split up at the end of 2007. The album No Fighting in the War Room then came out in February 2008, over a year after being completed in late 2006. But the brief hype around the band had been extinguished after they struggled to take advantage of their growing popularity. There was a comeback show at Sheffield's Lead Mill in 2014, but since then there's been no further return from Harrisons. At around the same time, we also had The Upper Room. After signing with Sony, the band put out their debut album Other People's Problems in May 2006, which included All Over This Town and Black and White, which both ended up being top 40 singles in the UK. Then, that summer saw them appear at Isle of Wight Festival and V Festival. But a few months later in November, they announced on MySpace that the band had split, a decision widely seen to be due to difficulties the band faced with Sony. To take a brief journey into the world of New Rave, first we have Late of the Pier. The band actually predated the brief New Rave trend, forming in 2004, but it was in 2007 that they came to prominence with breakthrough singles Bathroom Gurgle and Space in the Woods. After support slots for Hadouken, Justice and Kaiser Chiefs, the band then released their debut album Fantasy Black Channel in July 2008, earning them a number of Enemy Award nominations the following year. However, after releasing just 2 more singles over the next couple of years, the band went their separate ways with various side projects. Singer Sam Eastgate produced Egyptian hip-hop's debut double A-side single and continues to make music as LA Priest, while Sam Potter co-wrote music on Franz Ferdinand's 2018 album Always Ascending. In 2015, drummer Ross Dawson sadly passed away following what was described as a very sudden and tragic accident. Sticking with New Rave, we also have Disco. Coming out of the Glasgow School of Art, the band gained hype in the UK with their early singles as New Rave began to become popular. They stuck to the rave element more than most of their contemporaries, hosting free parties and raves across Glasgow. Further afield, they supported Klaxons on the Enemy New Rave Revolution tour in 2006. Their album Kingdom of Fear came out in 2007 and received a 9 out of 10 rating from NME. It was later released in the US under the alternate name The Emanator. But by 2009, the band had split by mutual consent, with Joe Reeves and Darren Cullen going on to form Age of Consent, whose songs Colours and Heartbreak can be found on the in-game radio in GTA 5. Not quite New Rave, but from the same scenes were Pull Tiger Tail. Their previous project, Antihero, gained some success, including a feature on the late John Peel's radio show. Then, before forming Pull Tiger Tail, Jack Hampson and Davo McConville formed Hollywood is a Verb with Simon Taylor Davis and James Wrighton, later of Klaxons. They were all living together in a house in New Cross when both Pull Tiger Tail and Klaxons formed. Just a year after Paul Tiger Tail were formed, they were invited to play the 2007 Enemy Radar tour with the Rumble Strips, The Little Ones and Blood Red Shoes, and also the MySpace Music tour with Hadouken. Unfortunately, their single Hurricanes was prevented from hitting the top 40 by an iTunes error, which then saw the band drop from the Be Unique label. Their album Pause had been completed earlier in 2007, but it remained under the ownership of the Be Unique label despite the band having been dropped. After a legal battle, the album was returned to the band and able to be released in August 2009. However, apart from a compilation of B-sides and rarities later that year, The Lost World, there would be no further new material from Paul Tiger Tail. Jack Hampson would play with Noah and the Whale and Friendly Fires in the following years before reuniting with Marcus Ratcliffe to form Thumpers. Here we have our first all-female group on our list, Dead Disco. The band formed at the University of Leeds and then produced two singles, The Treatment and Automatic, with the now legendary James Ford. One of his earliest projects was producing the Test Icicles album, but as well as being a member of both Simian Mobile Disco and The Last Shadow Puppets, he came to prominence after producing the Klaxons' debut album Myths of the Near Future. He would then go on to produce every future Arctic Monkeys album from Favourite Worst Nightmare onwards, as well as albums for Foals, Mumford & Sons and Gorillaz. The breakthrough singles for Dead Disco and an appearance at Leeds Festival saw the band gain enough hype to warrant a move to Los Angeles to work on recording their debut album with another legendary producer, Greg Kurstin, a future Grammy winner with Adele. However, when vocalist Victoria Hesketh began writing more mainstream songs, she then left the band in August 2008, and the band had officially split in December, with just 4 singles to their name. Her gamble soon paid off though. At the same time as the breakup of her old band, her new project Little Boots topped the BBC's Sound of 2009 poll, ahead of White Lies, Florence and the Machine, and even Lady Gaga. Her debut album Hands reached number 5 in the UK album chart, and Remedy peaked at 6 in the singles chart. Later, in 2009, she also received a nomination in both the Brit Awards and the MTV Europe Music Awards. Next, we have Vincent and the Villains. The band originally started with 2 frontmen, Vincent himself and Charlie Waller, but Charlie left in 2005 to rejoin his childhood friends in the Rumble Strips, inspiring the song Johnny Two Bands. The song became a breakthrough single for Vincent and the Villains, who even performed it on Top of the Pops in 2006. But in what has become a common theme of this video, the band had issues with their label, this time the major label giant EMI. Their debut album didn't come out until March 2008, and the band played their final show in September that year. For the next band, firstly, an apology to American viewers. Their name is just incredibly British, not an attempt at being offensive to Americans. So here we go. Up next, it's We Smoke Fags. Probably the briefest of shelf life so far, the band's presence didn't last much beyond a growing MySpace popularity, and their single EastEnders being named as Steve Lamac's Demo of the Week in 2007. Other singles, Lust Puppet and Passion for Fashion, also did well on the platform, and the band toured extensively at the time. But in 2009, they announced that the band had officially split, with their announcement including confirmation that their bassist was then performing with New Young Pony Club. Vocalist Joe Isherwood was later seen alongside Fat White Family's Saul Adamczewski in the band Insecure Men. This then leads us to our next band, the Metros.
Education's overrated, and I'm the monster that it created.
Fronted by the very same Saul Adamczewski, the Metros were his first notable musical project, with the band formed while they were still in school. They quickly gained attention after a number of festival appearances in 2007, and in early 2008 they appeared live on the first episode of the short-lived TV series Lily Allen and Friends.
I'll see you next week, and playing us out is your vote winners, the Metros!
After the release of their debut single, Education Part 2, the band appeared with Madness and the Holloways at the Royal Albert Hall for a Teenage Cancer Trust concert. They also opened the Enemy Radio 1 stage at the 2008 Reading and Leeds Festival. Their album More Money Less Grief came out in September that year, but less than 12 months later they announced that the band had split and the members were going their separate ways. Saul Adamczewski then founded Fat White Family as lead guitarist. The band has been active since 2011, with Saul a member until his recent departure from the band this year. Away from guitars briefly, we have the electro-punk act Crimes. The duo met while living in a North London warehouse, which really sets the tone for their story. They were then evicted on short notice, which meant their first self-titled EP was made while the duo were homeless. They went on to fund the release of their music through hosting illegal squat raves. Often compared with Crystal Castles with their harsh electronic beats and frenzied vocals, the band actually put out a number of remixes of Crystal Castle songs under their previous name of Story of Isaac. It's not clear whether Crimes has officially split, but their last release was the single Militia in 2016, meaning the band's discography consists of 2 4-track EPs and a few other singles. Up next, one of the poorer choices of band name, Egyptian Hip Hop. Coming out of Manchester at the turn of the decade, their double A-side single Wild Human Child and Heavenly, produced by later the Pier Sam Eastgate as mentioned previously, began to gain the band attention. Later, in 2010, they played the Festival Republic stage at Reading and Leeds Festival with the likes of Tame Impala and Marina and the Diamonds. Their first EP came out shortly afterwards, called Some Reptiles Grew Wings, which included their biggest song to date, Rad Pit. Then, in 2012 came their debut album, Good Don't Sleep, which got a 7.5 rating from Pitchfork, but by 2014 the band had disbanded, with their members going their separate ways. Frontman Alex Hewitt continued making music under the name Aldous RH. Firmly arriving into the 2010s now, we have Life in Film. Taking influence from the jangly guitar sounds of the Smiths and Bell and Sebastian, the band first gained wider attention when they played Alleyway for Burberry's YouTube channel. They then worked on their debut album with legendary producer Stephen Street, who after producing 4 of Blur's albums, went on to produce Employment by Kaiser Chiefs, St. Jude by the Cortinas, and 21 by Mystery Jets. Life in Film's album Here It Comes came out in 2015, but there will be no further releases before the band announced their split in 2017. Out of Wales, we briefly had the band Estrons. After their breakthrough single Make a Man gained attention following its release on SoundCloud, the band then headlined the BBC Music Introducing stage at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas in 2016, sharing the stage with the Sherlocks and Billy Martin. Later in the year, they released their EP She's Here Now, which included their hit song I'm Not Your Girl. It received plenty of acclaim from the likes of NME and Noisy. After supporting the Amazons and Garbage, they announced the prestigious honour of being invited to support the infamous Pussy Riot at their Edinburgh Fringe residency. Later in 2018, their album You Say I'm Too Much, I Say You're Not Enough was released. It received a 4-star review from NME and even a nomination for the Welsh Music Prize. But after just a further single release early in 2019, Estrons played their final show in February that year and announced that they were disbanding, just 4 months after the release of their album. Vocalist Tally Kallstrom was later spotted collaborating with fellow Welsh band Right Hand Left Hand. while bassist Stephen Pringle has continued working as a producer and also formed the band Deaf Court Electric. We then have the London band Dead. They had been building a reputation with early singles Phantom and Something More Original. Then, after a host of festival appearances in 2017, such as playing directly before idols at Live at Leeds, and also performances at Download and Kendall Calling, the band's debut album, The Golden Age of Not Even Trying, came out in January 2018. With the growing popularity of songs such as You're So Cheap and Up for Ransom, the band had a busy 2018 scheduled with more touring. But in June that year, they cancelled all future shows apart from an appearance at the Underworld in Camden, which would be the band's farewell show. Guitarist Sam Matlock, son of Sex Pistols Glenn Matlock, went on to form the heavy electronic band Wargasm with Milky Way, who he met when she was hired to photograph the band Dead. They've since collaborated with Enter Shikari, Fred Durst and Corey Taylor, and also won the New Noise Award at the 2022 Kerrang Awards. Finally, in this section, we have the Van Tees. The Van Tees first came to prominence in 2016 with their EP A Coming of Age, and followed it up with standalone singles such as Fresh Meat and Suis-Je Cool. After plenty of touring over the next few years, they played their biggest ever show in August 2019, a support slot for Foo Fighters in Glasgow. They even convinced Dave Grohl to chug from a bottle of Buckfast in this video from their Instagram.
Dave Grohl, what do you think of the Buckfast?
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I wasn't gonna leave this city without at least one bottle of this. My favorite drink.
Well, everybody, there you go. Buckfast wine.
Their last release was the popular 2020 single Seeing Stars. Despite a comeback show in Glasgow at King Tut's in October 2021, there has been no sign of any more new music or shows from the Van Tees since. Up next are a couple of bands who technically fit the criteria of having one album or less, but I wanted to make a separate section for these as they most likely would have put out plenty of albums and had long careers if fate had given them a chance. Firstly, we had the electro-pop band Est Le Swimming Pool. They gained popularity in 2009 after the release of their debut single Dance the Way I Feel, and were set for a busy 2010. After supporting LaRue on her tour, the band had a summer of festivals across the UK and Europe planned. However, in August 2010, following their performance at Pukkelpop in Belgium, frontman Charles Haddon became distressed over fears over the severity of injuries caused to a girl when he had jumped into the crowd. Tragically, Charles Haddon was found to have committed suicide at the festival site later that day. He was only 22 years old. Later that year, the other band members arranged a festival called Chazstock in his honour. In 2010, the event included performances from The Kooks, The Horrors, Mr. Hudson, and even Tony Hadley of Spandau Ballet. A week later, the band's debut album, The Golden Year, was released. Originally scheduled to be released shortly after their Pukkelpop appearance, it was eventually released to honour Charles Haddon. We'll then end this section of the video by paying tribute to Viola Beach. During 2015, the band began to gain a name for themselves in the UK, with Swings and Water Slides being played on Radio 1, and with appearances on the BBC introducing stage at Reading and Leeds Festival, along with contemporaries The Big Moon and The Amazons. After releasing Boys That Sing in January 2016, the band had begun supporting Blossoms on their UK tour. The band then took advantage of a gap in the tour schedule to make an appearance at the Where's the Music Festival in Sweden. However, they never made it home. When driving back to their hotel, the band and their manager Craig Tarry were killed in an accident that resulted in their car falling into a canal. The story gained nationwide attention, with a campaign seeing their single Swings and Water Slides reach number 11 in the UK chart the following week. Blossoms used a recording of Viola Beach's last UK show on the rest of their tour dates, playing the audio of the band's full set out in venues where they should have been playing. In April that year, a tribute concert was held at Parr Hall in their hometown of Warrington, featuring the Coral, the Courteeners, the Kooks, and Blossoms. Then that June, Coldplay used their Glastonbury headline slot as a platform to pay tribute to Viola Beach, performing Boys That Sing.
We decided as a band, instead of playing Heroes tonight, that we're going to create Viola Beach's alternate future for them and let them headline Glastonbury for a song. So.
Whatever you may think of Chris Martin, giving the band a brief moment to headline Glastonbury was a uniquely touching tribute. Then, in July, a collection of the band's recordings was put together as a self-titled album, which then reached number 1 in the UK charts and was later certified as gold. For Chris Leonard, River Reeves, Thomas Lowe, Jack Dakin, and their manager Craig Tarry, the name Viola Beach is remembered in a bronze frieze at Parr Hall in Warrington, and the Neighbourhood Weekender Festival, also in Warrington, now has a Viola Beach stage. In the 2 years of the stage being named in their honour, it has seen performances from upcoming bands such as the Royston Club, The Last Dinner Party, and 2024 Mercury Prize winners English Teacher. To end on a brighter note, here's an honourable mention. Yes, Funeral Party are American, but like the Killers and Kings of Leon before them, they're a band that fit more into the UK indie scene than they did back home. After ranking at number 47 on NME's Best New Bands of 2010, the popularity of their album The Golden Age of Nowhere the following year saw them then make appearances on US talk shows such as The Late Show with David Letterman, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and Conan.
My next guests are from right here in Los Angeles. They've come by tonight to perform a song from their album The Golden Age of Nowhere. Please welcome Funeral Party.
But despite talks of a second album being due for release in 2014, it never came to fruition. The band officially split in 2016, and apart from a couple of live appearances in 2019, the band never fully returned. And so, that's the end of this pretty extensive list of notable indie bands but never released more than a single album. If there are any that I've missed, please do let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this.